all right. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction, and you get to join the shenanigans live because, well, we're insane, and it's Friday the 13th, so why the hell not? Oh, you got to do the voice effects. You didn't warn me for that. We could have gotten Terry prepared. She does some voice acting on the side. See, she's got it. Now you got to do the re-rees as you're like threatening to stab somebody. Stabby's got that one down. Yeah, right. We got this. All right. So because we're a professional operation here, at least that's the rumor anyway, we're going to let our guests introduce ourselves. So I'm going to go in order of the alphabet because, I was in the infantry and I can do the alphabet 1, 2, 3. See, I can count. All right, Miss Chloe Gardner, no D. Can you introduce yourself to our listeners and viewers?
Hi, I'm Chloe Garner. I am the author of the Very Different Universe, starting out with the Queen's Chair series of books. It's a second world fantasy with a city full of magic and elves. And I am thrilled to be here talking about fairy tales tonight.
Out freaking standing, and we are thrilled to have you here next because we're going to call him James because calling him J.E. just feels a little bit weird. But James J.E. Pittman, which is what he produces, publishes, he writes the words as. Can you introduce yourself? And we'll pretend I didn't just stumble all over that live on air.
We'll take a phone here. All right, so I'm J.E. Pittman, aka James. Just for everybody's ease of use, I write the Felix Chance series and several other web serials. Felix Chance, he's basically a walking Twilight Zone with a dash of Doctor Who. Strange and weird things happen, and I talk about them. Don't worry, JR, I'm going to stumble over a whole lot more than you are. But anyway, that's kind of what I write. That's what I do. I just tell the weird stories.
I'm here for the weird, man. That's the way we roll.
You're here for the Sasquatch.
And aren't we all here for the weird?
I'm like, you write one Yeti romance story and no one will ever let you forget it, right? It wasn't like they were bronies, right? It wasn't like they were bronies or anything. I have some standards. Jeez.
Do you know? Many of them.
Well, yeah.
If I paid you enough, you'd write about the bronies.
Probably. I'd figure out what Applejacks was doing on his weekends. I'm just saying. Mm-hmm. All right. Next we have. No, you're going to clip that. It's going to get ugly. All right, Miss Jenna S. Brown, who sometimes lets her other personalities come out to play when she is Jenna Ray. But can you introduce yourself?
That's right. Fantastic. I'm Jenna S. Brown or Jenna Ray. Under Jenna Ray, I write science fiction, fantasy, and urban fantasy. Currently finishing the last book in the War of the Lich, which will come out hopefully at the beginning of January. All goes well and my kids get a Christmas and all that kind of neat stuff. And Jen S. Brown writes nonfiction, and then I have another pen name and she writes all that squishy gushy romance stuff. So we'll bring that out as appropriate or inappropriate. You don't know.
Appropriate is overrated. All right, and last but not least, we have Miss Terry K. Job.
Hi! As JR just put it, I am Terry K. Job. I am the narrator of the Lady of Death series and the Nightshade series by J.F. Posthumous. And if the stars align and editing goes well, I'll hopefully have a physical book next year. Hopefully. We'll find out.
Yay! Physical books!
Will it be big enough that you could murder someone with it, asking for a friend?
Well, if it turns into a series, maybe.
So I'm just saying, like,
you tape them all together.
I did the Storming Area 51 anthology that was so big, I literally had to shrink to 10-point font. I had to mess with the margins. I'm not saying it's a murder weapon, but if I dropped it on your foot, you'd need a new foot.
I'll guarantee concussion. Concussion for sure.
That is a standard I can live with. Stabby, does it meet your round of approval? Is it concussion enough?
I guess it can do for now. We'll get it bound in hardcover later.
Well, exactly. Okay. Once you had hardcover, then all bets are off.
Nick, put your stinking phone down below the camera. All right. But this is the important.
Tell Stabby to quit texting me.
So Terry, this is the important question, though. If Stabby stabs somebody holding the book, would it stop the knife or would the knife go through?
Ooh, 50-50.
I'll take those odds. I ate in a chow hall once. I think I can handle those odds. I mean, if you told me it was like gas station sushi odds, I'm not doing it.
Oh no.
Yeah, but chow hall enchilada night, I'll take those odds.
I'll take those odds.
You
I
know,
know,
actually, in Korea and Japan, eating the sushi from 7-Eleven is just as good as eating the sushi from a sushi bar. Just saying.
I call bullshit. I'm
Oh,
paying-
there's
I'm
all
paying
sorts
fly
of
to
people.
Japan and Korea to figure that out.
Well, I think I trust it from a gas station over there more than I would trust it from a gas station over here.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
different.
I mean, the Wawa's locally, which is a gas station,
I love
does sell
Wawa's.
food. They've got like a little restaurant deal in there, and they do sell sushi. And I have seen people buy it. Now I haven't bought it, but I also don't like sushi, so
I usually
prefer my-
Wawa's is, I don't know, but if Buc-ee's had it, I'd totally freaking eat it.
they have been in the news lately, and not for good things.
Leave
Buc-ee's
motherfuckers
has?
alone.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, apparently the owner's son was like sticking cameras where cameras didn't belong and not asking permission. It was a bad thing.
That's bad.
Oh, no.
All right. Let's talk about something else.
But we were going grim because it's Friday the 13th. So instead, let's talk about grim fairy tales. So Nick is in love with all things fairies and tales. Wait, that sounded wrong. Fairy tale related.
No. Keep it. I love it.
all right. Nick likes fairy tales. He likes Friday the 13th. And he wanted to pick. I let him pick the topic because he is sponsoring this episode with his Fund My Comic, the Bengali edition. So,
In a
Can you-
world of terror.
can you remind people what Bengali is? Or do you want me to throw the commercial up real quick?
Yeah, throw up the commercial, man. Let's get that sizzle reel going.
Sizzle. It's smoking people.
To become
Frickin' standing. We actually got one live viewer. So whoever you are out there in podcast land, we appreciate you. We love you. All right. So tell us about this Bengali before we jump into the topic, since you're sponsoring the episode and stuff.
Madam
Well,
Seven's the producer.
She gets 5% of nothing right now. But it's a cut. Bengali's a story of a guy that the protagonist is he's a well-liked dude. He's what you would call a pure soul. He's very selfless. And when faced with his own mortality through being shot because his brother didn't want to share the company, he hears a voice in the darkness, and it's the mask of Bengali calling to him, telling him, "I will repair you, I will hear you, and I will avenge you and help you in your quest." And Benito's like, "Oh, what quest? I have no quest. I'm a crime scene artist for the San Diego Police Department. I don't know what you're talking about." And he's like, "Just come over here. I'm going to fix you." So he crawls over there. He puts on the mask, and he's met with this, this powerful entity that's pure darkness. It's existed long before the Big Bang, or what they call in the series the First Light. So it's a power struggle between the mask and the wearer of who's going to corrupt who first, and they're both feeling the effects. And it's very interesting, and it's got some good violence, got some good action scenes in there. We got some interesting villains. took a whole lot of things that influenced us, like scientifically made creatures. We talked about creature features and using some old world magic and put it in a blender, and we have Bengali. So check it out.
All right. And with that being said, thank you for sponsoring this episode. If you want to know more, if you go back through our back catalog after we're done being live, we talked about this for a couple episodes ago, and there'll be a link in the show notes, and there will be a link in the show notes of that one for that GoFundMe. Is still live until the 31st. So there is a chance for you to be a part of that, to buy a copy of Bengali 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, we offer the catch-up. There's for you skateboard enthusiasts, there's also a skateboard deck option.
All right. You have that with you, Stabby?
Dude, no.
Stabby's getting it. We're going to look at the skateboard.
This is what it will be like.
Awesome.
Sweet.
You could totally jump some whatever, insert random skateboard nonsense move.
Some sweet rails, I guess. I don't know.
Some upside down, over the half pipe, under flip kick something. Does that sound like I know what I'm talking about? Because I totally don't.
Yeah, with that board deck, you will totally nail a 720 something or other.
Dude, I played Tony Hawk when I was a kid. That totally makes me an expert.
Yeah,
I'm sure you can pop an ollie.
I'm going to pretend I know what that is and say, sure.
Could also pop a kneecap.
At my age,
Or an ankle.
It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
Just
Or a
looking at that deck, I've already torn my meniscus and my ACL. I tore it all up on both knees. I meant, luckily it's a rolling chair. I can just roll.
Gave yourself road rash.
Is that what you're calling wheelchairs these days? Rolling chairs? Okay, it fits.
Whoa.
Back in my day, they were called caveman scooters.
You know who also remembers, Nick? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Pepperidge Farms remembers.
That is a meme that will never die if I'm alive.
I use that when I bring up receipts in an argument.
Yeah.
When they're fully talking out their fourth point of contact, and I bring it up, and I'm like, "You remember saying this?" Pepperidge Farms remembers.
So that's why Stabby asked me about a hitman that would dress as Pepperidge Farms. All right, I would warn you, sir, to maybe just look behind you every so often.
Never trust the Amish.
All right, so now that we've gotten all the hate mail from the Amish online community, we will move on.
Online community that would violate them and get them shunned. I win twice.
All right, so fairy tales. All right, so first, does anybody remember the very first fairy tale they were told as a kid?
Ooh.
Mine was Jack and the Beanstalk. Hansel and Gretel? Yeah, that was up there.
Hansel and Gretel.
Cinderella, I think.
That might be. It's probably one of the ones that was turned into a Disney movie, quite honestly.
Yeah.
You know what? It's Beauty and the Beast, because I remember at the end of that movie, when they had the fight scene in the castle, I remember being scared and going out of the theater. According to my parents, I was claiming it was my bedtime.
It was
So, Dad,
Kara,
would
you're
make
so
Mom
young
see
and
it then.
cute.
Oh, yeah, I was about 2 or 3.
Oh, stop it. Go away. Get off my lawn.
Oh,
Yeah.
You got to shake your fist at the sky too.
So I'm going with Beauty and the Beast.
So my family is half German, and so I grew up with the Grimm's version, but it was not quite as pretty as the Disney
Better
version.
version.
Oh, no.
And when I asked my grandma about it, she said Disney was for other people, not for our family.
Yeah, the Grimm version is fucking nightmare fuel, man.
That it was meant to make little kids behave. Like,
Yeah.
you don't want to go away from mom.
Yeah, it was the original story.
That was
So you have to
childhood
remember
before they
that-
had baby leashes.
Oops, sorry. You have to remember that the Grimm versions were collections. So they found creepy stuff that other people had written about and been telling about for years and years and years, and they were collectors. They just picked all of the best stuff and shoved it together, did a little bit of editing, and now it's called Grimm's, but they didn't do the work on these things. They did not originate them. They borrowed from a lot of people, but they published them, and they got them out there where people started reading them, and they became commonplace and gave a commonplace reference.
they took the oral stories that these, like we talked about this in another episode, I don't remember which one, but the fire tale, around the hearth, around the campfire, these stories of they were all warnings. They were to let you know, hey, don't go out in the woods chasing stuff that shouldn't be there, and nobody's gonna offer you free candy,
Moral lessons, because the good people generally make it through. But if you're misbehaving, if you're not obeying your parents, if you're doing things against what the tribe and society wants you to do, you end up eaten. And that's the best case scenario.
Those stories are the original rules that go into slasher movies.
Yeah.
Oh, we're seeing episodes.
Slasher movies are fairy tales in another for another generation. Because it's the same thing.
Check that out.
Yeah.
Talks a lot about it.
What about you, James? What was your first?
It was probably one of the Disneys, or some animated variety. I remember, Little Red Riding Hood, Hansel and Gretel, all the fun ones, and I really liked how they grow up with you as well. Like you can watch the Disney kind of kiddified ones, and then you get to the more Grimm's tales, which are, the collection of the best or worst of the oral histories. And, you got fairy tales for every level.
Okay. I can see that. Although my family, we just started you out, still in diapers. I don't care. That will eat your face. That explains a lot about me, actually. Anyway, this isn't the JR Therapy Hour, so we're going to let Chloe jump in.
Yeah, I think mine was probably Hansel and Gretel, and I think what's most startling about that one is this idea that killing the bad guy in the end and just walking away is a perfectly good, normal, healthy thing for children to be doing. And the fact that we don't really have a Disneyfied version of that, it makes that story a little bit stark in comparison to your Cinderella and your Beauty and the Beast and your Snow White and all of these. It's you got little kids killing people and get 2 thumbs up from society for it. It's startling.
I mean, in Cinderella, the ending for the sisters that were mean to her, it wasn't pretty.
No.
Although they kind of had it coming, even in the Disney version.
Yeah.
All right. So when did you realize, for those of you that started with Disney, that those were not the original versions of the fairy tales? When did you go exploring for more?
My mom.
Probably not too long after I reached double digits in age. It's like, oh, there's other versions. What? It also helped. My mother was a librarian, so hey, I was at the library a lot.
Terry, you poor soul. Here, let me hit you with some facts real quick and give you nightmares.
Was your mother also investing heavily in therapy organizations? Is this funding her investment by terrifying all these young children?
No.
I'm just wondering,
anyway.
if she was, one of the founders of Better Health, the online therapy, it all starts to connect the dots, is all I'm saying.
It does. It does.
I'd have to check my mother's investment history too now at this point, but
I was traumatized by the real story of Cinderella. I was like, wait, what? She beheading fools? Why didn't she do that in the beginning?
Yeah, there's some of them that never quite made sense, like Red Riding Hood. Like, how the heck did she believe that wolf was her grandmother? Was her grandmother that ugly? I mean, it never made sense. Shapeshifter?
Eyesight that poor.
Yeah.
Skinwalker?
Yeah.
Skinwalker.
It was...
There is that condition that exists that people just grow so much hair.
Yeah, on the hair.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe her grandmother had that? Maybe?
They never really dove in because that wasn't the point of the story, but I'm just saying I had questions.
There's some plausible deniability there. It's like, oh, maybe it'll further the plot. I don't know.
So one of the things, one of the things that about the fairy tales that did always intrigue me is how, despite being separated by cultures and sometimes continents, there were some similarities between some of the fairy tales. Like we all had like a lot of, ideas of like the supernatural, the fae existed, sort of shape shifting into animals existed, spirits, the tricksters that would, torment you if you were less than honest.
Ghouls.
Mm-hmm.
Look,
Vampires of some sort, gods. A lot of those things they're universal.
Yeah.
Rumpelstiltskin.
yeah, that one was interesting. I mean,
I'm just sitting down here listening,
Apparently, that's one of the oldest ones.
really?
Yeah, it's from like 4,000 years ago. They kind of,
Wow.
yeah. It and which one? There's another one about the same time, but the Welsh and the English have a long history of old traditions that were just passed down.
It looks like, according to Fairy Tale Wikipedia, because they are a reputable source, the oldest story fairy tale is the story of the Smith and the Devil, or the Devil with the Deal, and
Yeah,
it
that
appears
was
to be 6,000 years old.
Yep. Next on the list would be like Rumpelstiltskin, and I can't remember the third one.
Well, they said the Swan Woman, the Swan Maiden, which goes back to the Paleolithic as a story. But how would they know? I mean, because languages changed. That one seems like a stretch.
We're just doing the best we can, JR. Jesus.
I mean, we just looked at the stick figures and we tried to guess what they meant.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, do you guys prefer the Disneyfication, the smoothing out the rough edges of fairy tales, or do you like the grimmer, darker, more appropriate for the day?
I like the ones that are more nuanced and have more layers.
Like an onion.
Yes, like a Shrek.
I think them making all of our old fairy tales so sweet and the happy endings and nobody really ever gets hurt has made it where this new generation just thinks it's okay to talk smack and never get smacked in the face.
There's a lacking of the F around and find out dynamic.
Yeah,
you gotta get eaten by a wolf sometimes. Sometimes you gotta get eaten by a wolf.
Was it Mike Tyson's famous line, people have gotten too comfortable mouthing off of the internet where no one's going to punch them in the face?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's got a plan till they get pumped in the face.
I mean, the man has some words of wisdom. So one of the things that I find interesting, which I'm digging back into like undergraduate English theory, there's like two different competing theories of the origins. When you see cross-cultural transmissions of tales, it's either A, there's one point of origin and then over the centuries it just spread as people moved and migrated, or option B is that because it's so closely tied to the human condition, they just all simultaneously sort of created the same story at once.
Universal fantasy.
Yeah, so I don't know that I have an answer. I think it's probably a little bit of A, a little bit of B.
I think a lot of these stories fit into the zeitgeist of the time and further than that, because I'm sure every culture has a similar fable. So I think it's explaining the unexplainable. It's a cautionary tale. It's a tale of morality. Seeing little differences in them. I think that's what makes it fun. If baking a witch in her own oven is fun. Some cultures it is. Germany.
Yeah, she asked for it.
She had it coming, and Germany's a very vengeful country. Look at their history. But
well, and you do get that universal. I mean, universal stories. Cinderella, the rags to riches story, shows up everywhere. China has a version of it. There's an Egyptian version of it. There's an Indonesian version of it. It's all over because it is that idea of the poor nobody who is able to rise in status, and that's a universal fantasy. You see that bringing in the romance thing. You see it in romance all the time. That's one of the romance tropes that people really love is this Cinderella story of moving into a better position, a higher society. I mean, you see it in, again, India, England, all over. You get this idea of the person who's able to raise their place in society, but comes from these very humble beginnings. And the story behind that is the reward that says if you are a good person, if you are humble, if you do all these things, you can become somebody who is of higher rank. You get the guy, you get the money, you get all that kind of stuff. And that's a very appealing universal fantasy. So we see just an amazing number of Cinderella stories, each with their own cultural shaping to it, but it all tells the same story. It's all that rags to riches, what you become because you're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you know what? Nick,
looking at
go ahead, Chloe. Go ahead.
Looking at the style of storytelling in the oldest written fairy tales, it's a bit jarring and it's a bit depersonified. It's a morality play, and the people aren't supposed to feel like people or act like people, and they have a certain amount of agency, but really they're just a player accomplishing a task. And that's not a satisfying story in my modern sense of storytelling. So it's tempting to say that Disney is more interesting because those characters tend to have a little bit more of a sense of humanity to them and a little bit more of a backstory, a little bit more of a personality to them. But I think that I'm just looking for stories that are modernizing the storytelling of the older fables, the older fairy tales, and what they really meant. Disney missed out on a lot of the point. So the fact that so many of them come from an oral tradition and they're meant to be updated, they're meant to be adapted to the local culture. I don't think there's anything wrong with pushing them forward into more modern storytelling types. And that tends to be more satisfying to me as a consumer of stories. But Disney isn't really the pinnacle of that. There are a lot of other versions of that running around that are a lot more interesting in terms of why is this important? Why does this story need to be told over and over again? Because it does. That's how we remember what we know as a species.
Mm-hmm.
And carrying that forward is so much the value of fairy tales.
Yeah, keeping its place in the zeitgeist, the common, thought of stuff.
Well, and that's why it's a genre of its own. I mean, if you look on any major distributor, there's huge categories for fairy tale retellings. They get told over and over again, and people add a twist to them. And now Cinderella is an assassin, and she's at the ball for completely nefarious reasons, but it still follows the beats and what that means. There's a Snow White, the Seven Dwarves I just read that was in outer space. And you see it going into all of these other genres, and it's still bringing that message fiction, that morality play, all those things, and then giving it the dressings of science fiction, giving it the dressings of fantasy, giving it the dressings of modern day retellings, left, right, and center. But that message, that's something that's still valuable. The slasher films, it's still a valuable message that says, don't go off and have sex by yourself at the party because you've got a problem.
Amount of drugs.
Yeah, well, you do that, and the bad guy finds you. And that's what they were telling you is don't get involved in these things. And we still see that over and over again. We love retellings, and we love picking out the parts that are from the original, and then seeing how people have managed to add their own twist to it, and yet still stay within the genre.
You just don't want people to make changes just to change. If you're going to change something, I think why you do it matters as much as what you do.
I want to see cyberpunk Cinderella.
I'm just saying Snow White is a reverse harem. Somebody's going to do it.
There is a Cinder.
Oh, wasn't Cinder where Cinderella was like a robot? Wasn't that it?
Yep, it's futuristic / cyberpunk Cinderella.
All right. And apparently, if you were a backer of the Blasters and Blades over at Buy Me a Coffee, you'd be seeing the side chat, and you would know Jenna has a thing for dwarves. I'm just saying. It's those beards.
I read the Snow White reverse harem, and it was a thing.
Wait, I was joking. I didn't know it was actually a thing.
Oh gosh,
it's a thing. How could it not be?
Andy's got a hold of the ability to put stuff out. All this stuff existed.
Yeah, it all exists.
Yeah, they're all public domain too, so they haven't been. They don't fall under the
Peter Pan. Peter Pan is not public domain.
Wait, no, is Peter Pan not? Wait.
Peter Pan was an original tale based on fairy tales, and it was gifted in perpetuity to an orphanage. And so it never actually, the original way that Peter Pan goes together doesn't actually ever go into the public domain because of the gifting. There's a whole legal thing around it, which
Wow,
I
that's
did work with helping people do public domain stories at one point. And somebody wanted to do Peter Pan. We talked to an IP lawyer and they said, you can't do that one. It's like, well, but why? How? It's plenty of time. It's well outside of the time. And he's like, no, that
75
the
years,
actual, yeah, the actual copyright to it is gifted in perpetuity, and because of the British laws around it, and we, because the Berne Convention, there's a whole bunch of publishing stuff behind it. But because of a bunch of rules, we don't do that either. And so Peter Pan itself is not in the public domain, but you can do rewritings around it because you saw Disney do that quite immediately.
like Hook.
But yeah, but the way that they tell the story and the things that are specifically part of the public domain with Peter Pan, they belong to an orphanage.
Because I would like to see Peter Pan of akin to Winnie the Pooh and Blood and Honey.
I'm just saying, as long as he's not wearing the red shirt, Winnie the Pooh is public domain.
Yep, he is.
Make it a mauve shirt.
He was technically wearing a red plaid shirt.
No, wasn't it solid color with the Disney version?
No,
That's
it was plaid. It was
Yeah.
plaid and overall.
The Disney one was a solid red, yes. But in the reimagining, it was red plaid.
Oh, well, yeah, the Disney one is the only one that's still protected.
Like Paul Bunyan.
Yeah, because you can copyright.
Yeah, because it's trademarked.
And the look, how trademark the look, yeah. But like I could create a character called Batman as long as he doesn't look like DC's Batman. But DC will still try and sue me into the Stone Age and make me blind with paperwork. So
yes,
yeah.
So okay, yeah, I like some of the.
Go ahead.
I like some of the reimaginings people are doing with fairy tales. I was going to dive in and start reading some of them in my copious free time. That's on my list to check out some of those because some of what people are doing with it, with the fairy tales and the ancient lore and myth and stuff. Some of that's pretty fascinating how they're changing it.
The Jeremy Renner, Hansel and Gretel, like Witch Hunter. It's one of my favorite.
Oh yeah,
that thing was cool as shit. It's like they took their childhood trauma from the original fairy tale, and then they were like, but what if they grow up and just decide to be witch hunters? I'm like, yes, we're going to make a lot of money, and I want to see that.
I'm just saying, the older I get, the more I agree with the witch. I'm sorry, but if a bunch of kids show up and start destroying my house,
eating your house, no less.
That's what your house, no less. A house out of delicious candy and gingerbread. What are you doing?
Maybe that's all her magic does. Maybe that's all her magic does.
I'm just saying that
specify why her house is candy.
The older I get, the more Gaston makes sense too. Like dude just wanted to get swole, work out, and this monster came and took his girl. Like, what was he supposed to do? Come on.
He's like, dude, I had my protein on track, my diet was on track, I was tracking all my macros, and this fool come over and start wrecking my shit.
He's like, I lifted plates, I was supposed to be getting dates.
No, husband, if you ever spoke to me the way that Gaston spoke to Belle, we would not be married.
In the cartoon, yes. In the book, maybe. I'm sorry, Gaston was the hero of that story.
And so that's an interesting thing. A lot of what we think of as the villains are sometimes the most moral person in the story. Go back to Rumpelstiltskin. He never lied. He said exactly what he was going to do. He set the price up front, and the stupid woman agreed to it. And then she's all, oh, my baby. It's like, he told you. He was completely and utterly honest about the cost for his services. The Sea Witch in The Little Mermaid, completely and utterly honest about the price for her services. And you think of a lot of these, and part of the morality play is that you're making decisions and you have to live with the consequences, or you have to figure out what to do with them. Because in the original Little Mermaid, she gets screwed at the end. She turns into sea foam because she made the decision. She did the thing. The Sea Witch was perfectly within her rights to do everything that she did and spelled it out before the girl signed the contract. But
if Ariel would have just read the contract, then she would have known she would have been perfectly fine, because the contract was just a bunch of random ass words that didn't even make sentences, therefore making it null and void. So
Mhm.
Only on the Disney version.
Right, Your Honor.
Just saying.
Yeah,
So
but it's just
We're
interesting
gonna go
because the
lawyer
villains
on
often
our
aren't.
fairy tales now.
Yeah,
So
you know what?
lawyers
That
are
actually could
good
be an
about
interesting take, like a legistic, like a lawyer breaking down the fairy tales, where he's like in the story, the character is a lawyer. I'm like, actually, I'm sorry, the witch was wrong because like you could start entering lawfare into the. It'd be funny. A statement of the
Perfect.
modern.
Nope.
Perfect example
is
is
dibs.
no. Perfect example is freaking Cinderella. I would not marry Prince Charming ever. First of all, you can't remember what my face looks like. Really? Really?
have
Were
a
you
look
that
at it,
drunk?
right?
He was a
Were
big
you that
baby.
drunk? And secondly, I can never find my shoes in the store because my size gets sold out first. You're telling me nobody in that whole entire village had the same size feet as her?
Magic
come
shoes.
on.
Magic
That's-
shoes.
Magic
That
shoes.
doesn't even make sense in the story because I have yet to meet a woman that doesn't know where her damn shoes are. Especially expensive stuff. Glass shoes, something pricey like that. She knows exactly where them fools are. And she
I
would
lost my
definitely would have
left
noticed
bug
if
yesterday.
one had fallen off her feet. Fairy godmother be damned. She's like, I gotta go back and get my straps because they're freaking awesome. And I fucking waited in line for 3 hours at this department store to get those straps. And I love them. And no, I'm coming home.
I'm about to school you, babe. You know those custom Uggs you bought me?
Yeah.
I can't find my left one.
The family-friendly show, kind of.
Did you
think
look under the coffee table?
it's not under the coffee table. It might.
It's under the coffee table. I bet when I come
No.
home next week, I'm gonna drag that
It's
coffee
not.
table out and find that
I'm just saying that's my most expensive pair of shoes, and I can't find the
it's
left
under the
one.
coffee table.
All right,
I
so
moved the coffee table because I mopped.
No, you didn't mop. I know you didn't mop. Make the kid mop.
Help
He
us,
had-
Terry. Start some other conversation.
I was going to say, going back to justified villains, I've actually read a couple things online explaining the witch in Sleeping Beauty, Maleficent. She had every right to be mad because back in medieval times, if there was a royal christening, you invited everybody, even if you don't like them.
It was
And it would have been up to her to decline because she knew she wasn't liked.
I really like how they portrayed her in the Angelina Jolie remake of it
Mm-hmm.
because she was just in love with dude and he snatched her freaking wings. I'm pretty pissed too.
Oh yeah, he was a jerk.
I got my
I'm
chicken
mad
wings
as hell.
smashed.
Like,
Horrible.
you know what? Be king. Forget your wife. Forget your daughter. Forget your whole kingdom. I don't care. You took my wings. Give me my wings back and we'll be chill.
And she
Yeah.
did the long game too for the curse, man. It's like one day your daughter will turn 16 and mess with a loom and prick her finger. And it's like, damn, girl, that's oddly specific.
This is oddly specific.
Like,
Well,
I
and
don't
it was
know what you planned,
economically
but-
ruinous because
Yep.
think about what a kingdom really would be at that time with no spinning wheels. I mean, you now have no ability to make your own fabrics. So, especially and some of the stuff I've read here is that the area that comes from, there was a lot of economy around being able to make cloth and
Yeah.
the buying and selling and that kind of thing. And you would have a kingdom that they wouldn't have access to that. They would have to import every single bit of their cloth. It's an economic nightmare not to be able to make your own clothes.
And
Throw
lasting
in
even
the-
beyond the 16 years because that takes years to learn how to do.
Yeah.
And then throw in the fact that they used all of the steel to make, or steel or silver that she couldn't be around, but they used all of it for these chains and this armor. And so there's none left to protect the rest of the city. The king is going freaking nuts, like absolutely bonkers. Somebody would have took over that village so quickly. Somebody would have been like, easy target.
Mm-hmm.
He's crazy.
All right, JR wants to talk now.
right, so this is where we're going to pause for a
Oh,
moment. And we're going to shamelessly shill for the man, and we're going to let Terry's commercial roll.
The Terran Empire is dead. Long live the Empire. Commander Jared Mertz, the bastard son of the Emperor, and his half-sister, Princess Kelsey, barely speak to one another. To their dismay, their father seizes an opportunity to change that and sends them on a dangerous quest to explore the fallen empire. Separated from home by an impassable gulf and struggling to redefine their relationship, they find themselves thrust into a vicious war. Unless they work together to stop the Empire's deadly legacy, billions face a horrific fate. Empire of Bones, written by Terry Mixon, now available at Amazon.com.
We are working on convincing that man to go wide, but he's all about that KU.
The what?
Kindle Unlimited, KU.
Oh, I thought you said something completely different.
We confused Terry. She thought we were talking about her ad, but she hasn't given me
Yeah,
any
and I was
yet.
like, wait, what? Huh?
You
I
can
have
do
an
that
ad?
though.
Different
First of all,
Terry.
shocked.
Yeah.
This is
I
Terry
was
Nixon.
listening. It's like, is this our Terry narrating? Nice.
No, that's
No, I looked at the
Veronica
image. There's
Jaguar.
some lady named Veronica something. I missed it. Sorry. Sorry,
Jaguar.
Veronica, wherever you are.
She's my favorite weirdo. Well, I haven't listened to your narration, so you might be my other favorite weirdo. I don't know,
Maybe.
but boring is not fun. So we'll move on. So all right, we talked about. I know, groundbreaking. So everyone that came on has or plans on potentially adding fairy tales into their fiction going forward. Specifically, Pittman, you're already doing some of that. So do you have a favorite fairy tale that you either will use or have already for your own works?
So I've recently included the Elves and the Cobbler, a little bit of the Devil and the Blacksmith, any kind of deal-making thing or supernatural assistance I've kind of played with a little bit already. I also really like Welsh mythology and stuff like fairy portals and things like that. A little bit of Scottish stuff in there as well. So I just kind of love weaving all that stuff in. But yeah, the Cobbler and the Elves, that was a big chapter in the second volume of Felix.
It helps if I remember to unmute and don't go full boomer.
Dead air, bro. Dead air.
When we looked it up earlier, The Devil and the Blacksmith is listed as the oldest fairy tale recorded.
Oh, yeah. And another thing I've included. So I don't know if you've seen this meme, but you know how Jack is a very common protagonist name in fairy tales?
Right.
And there's one that threads them all together saying it's all about the same Jack.
Oh.
I totally use that. Use
that. We're going to give you a little bit of a peek behind the curtain, dear listener. You know how I haven't seen that meme? Because I haven't stolen it yet. So if you haven't seen it on my personal Facebook page or on the Blasters and Blades Twitter account then I haven't seen it, because if I saw it, I'd steal it. That's just the way of the world.
That gets said stolen meme, and I have not seen it.
So basically, it starts off with, I want to say, Jack and Jill, then Jack Be Nimble, and then Jack and the Beanstalk, and then Stingy Jack.
In my Coke bottle.
And then Stingy Jack, who tricks the devil 3 times so much that he can't go to heaven or hell. And then he becomes Jack Frost, a undying lich lord.
Oh.
So,
okay.
They all weave together quite nicely.
All right. I'm in.
I'm curious now. You have my attention, sir.
You had my curiosity. Now you have my attention.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I used it kind of as a parallel little hint dropper.
And you're going to tie it all together, or you already have?
Yeah, it's in the second half of the first book.
Oh,
I'm going to say
nice.
Chapter.
As if I couldn't love you anymore.
Something like soaked.
You go and do something like that and completely redeem yourself. No.
Well, and Jack's an interesting one that jumped, because you get a lot of those original fairy tales about Jack, the Jack tales, from Europe, but then they have a really, really strong hold in Appalachia.
Yes.
Appalachia, excuse me. My Appalachian friends would hurt me for doing
Man,
that.
the Georgians are going to.
You have to get it right. It's like throwing apple at you. So it's
Yeah.
the assap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
But
where he
yeah,
came
there's a
across the
lot
middle
of
crossroads. You know,
What's it?
yeah.
after
Well, you
Phil
got the
found
Irish and the Scots that moved in, and you had that whole Scots-Irish that filled in that area, and they brought them with them, and then they got
Yep.
Americanized.
I think we're safe. The Appalachians ain't going to be watching this because they don't have
She
technology.
said it's that sound.
What did I say?
Yeah,
It was just the way it came out of your mouth. You said it's that sound, and it sounded like you said that ass sound. Just saying.
Hey, I've been up since way too early this morning, and this is not caffeinated soda, so you're just lucky I'm still awake, man.
You guys are children. I love it.
so what about you,
That ass. Ah.
Jana? So we can keep you awake. Have
Too
you
soon.
used too soon? Okay. Have you used any fairy tales in your own writing yet? And if not, which one do you plan on using?
I have a Beauty and the Beast short story that I did called How the Cookie Crumbles, about a cookie delivery girl who ends up finding a loup-garou in the New Orleans swamps. And so I've done that one. I am working on one based on King Thrushbeard, which is King Thrushbeard is Taming of the Shrew kind of thing.
Okay.
Where it was the princess who rejected and rejected and rejected and rejected everybody, and finally her father says, the next person who comes through the door, that's it, because I've had enough of this crap. And there was
That's
a
your
particular
dude.
prince that she had mocked because he had this funny looking beard, and she said it looks like that he's got the beard of a thrush, and so she called him King Thrushbeard, being a pain. And so this very, very poor man comes up to the castle, and he's selling stuff, and the king says, ta-da! Guess what you get? You get a princess. Take her and my blessings. So he takes her off, and now she has to learn how to keep house, and she's got to learn how to start the fire and all of these things that she is terrible at because she's been a spoiled brat. And so she learns all of these things. He eventually gets her a job working at the king's castle, and so she can see all these beautiful the king, not her father, but another one, because he takes her off to another land, and all of these things. And over time, she learns how to be a decent person, and then eventually finds out that she'd married the king, and that everything in that castle that she was going, I wish that I had this. If I'd only been a nicer person, I would have had this life. But no, I'm a scullery maid now, and it's all hers in the long run. But she has to learn how to be a good person first. And I'm like, I kind of love that whole thing where it's
A redemption arc?
well, it's a redemption arc, and it's taking the brat out of somebody and saying, yes, you can learn to be a good, hardworking person and earn these things instead of just getting them because of who you are.
Mhm.
Where's that book cover I just saved? It's perfect for this conversation. There you go, JR.
Uh-oh.
All right. Well, this isn't it, but this is royalty free, so it made me think of, you mentioned castles. And we're talking fairy tales, so why not a castle?
Gotta have castles.
She said, don't be a brat. Sometimes you just gotta be a brat, even if you are a good person.
That's true, but there are levels. And
Yeah.
when you reject all of your suitors at a certain point.
You get the ring first, you act like a brat later.
There we go. That's what's missing in the fairy tale.
It all makes sense now, honey.
That's what
All
happily
right.
ever after looks like.
Well, there you go. She just had one of those.
She
Like
just
four-
needed to read the book.
It's like 40 years too late for me. I have not read that book.
I did
And
not
then I
read-
correct him. Like,
rings.
no, it's not Dick. It's Nick. Nick. I don't know why everybody gets this wrong.
Oh, look, it's the red caps. You gotta be careful with them.
Yes, the powery.
Those are my people.
They're fun. I've used them as well.
Yeah. So, what about you, Terry? Have you used any yet? And we'll get to you next, Chloe. So start thinking.
I started thinking the first time you asked that question. I haven't yet. If I were to do so, though, I had a book of fairy tales when I was a kid, and it had some weird ones in it. And one is very hard to find anywhere else. It's called The Babes in the Wood.
Okay.
Which there's a few different versions of it, but essentially these kids have either no parents or just one who is very distracted and gives their care over to someone else while he deals with another thing. They end up out in the woods and freeze to death, but are covered up by leaves by robins, and then the remaining parent, if there is one, finds them and they're fine. That always fascinated me for whatever reason.
Okay.
So that might be a fun one.
Okay, what about you, Chloe?
Yeah, I tend to play with the more archetypal pieces of the fairy tales rather than the coherent narrative of them instead. Like the big bad wolf. I love running around big bad wolf characters out in the darkness that you know they're going to get you if you step out of line, but you have to go anyway. And I like the leaving home on a journey to seek a fortune. That's a really fun way to go build a character. It's such a classic hero's journey starting point anyway. But I also really like playing with the agency of princesses. Because princesses in your fairy tales are often working so hard to try to get to some goal, but they have no agency in their lives at all, and they're the victim of all of these things happening around them. And so they get themselves kidnapped, and they get themselves married, and they get themselves sent away, and that struggle for agency that princesses have, and how everything isn't always sunny being a princess, because they have this very, very structured life that they have to go live under, in this social expectation. And I've done several a stunning number of short stories actually with princesses fighting for agency. That's a really interesting one to me.
There's actually a meme we shared the other day, although maybe I scheduled it, I don't know. But the running joke is this guy is in armor and he's got the glowing eyes, and it says his girlfriend's telling him she should be treated like a princess. So he's like, I'll marry her off to a stranger twice her age to make peace with France.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's an interesting one.
It's all fun and games being a princess until you're an Italian princess, and then you wind up in some wicked crazy stories.
Yep.
Such as?
Go on.
I mean, if you think about it, like they talk about, Pinocchio, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's the wooden boy. He wants to be a real boy. He has to become a jackass first, and such. But if you move that old school fairy tale in Italy all the way down the line to about now, you're looking at more of a mafia princess than a princess in Rome.
Okay, that's
Nice.
proprietary information, Apogee Comics, copyrighted 2023.
Now you have a whole different fairy tale. Because do you pick up that title? Do you take that title when you know what comes with being that princess?
Okay.
I wouldn't want that. I would not want that type of responsibility to be the princess of a mafia. Like, what? No. That's too much responsibility. You have too many targets on your back. I'm good just over here living my best life by the beach. I don't need that kind of drama in my life.
But
I'm just saying. Is it worth it?
Yeah. The money? Always.
I don't think it is.
So Nick, if you were gonna,
Jimmy Hoffa would fight with you on that one.
He'd lose because he's old and dead.
Isn't that the safe that Geraldo Rivera opened on live TV?
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
the
empty?
Big Nothing Burger. I remember watching that as a kid.
Yeah, they hyped that so up.
I find so much cool stuff, and it was like nothing. I was like, and then I almost pushed him off a rooftop in outside of Baghdad in 2024 or 2004. Sorry.
All right, you probably shouldn't talk about that one. We are live on air. We cannot edit this out. There will be no post editing.
What? That I almost pushed him off a rooftop.
All right, we don't want him to sue you. You've got bills to pay. So, Nick, if you were going to use a fairy tale in one of your comics, or if you have already, let's talk about it.
Oh, you want me to talk about it right now? Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
or tomorrow when we're off air. Yeah.
There's a lot of good ones that come to mind. I think Hansel and Gretel, it's already been done. What I wanted to do with Hansel and Gretel has already been done.
Let the witch eat the kid.
No, that's not where I was going. And thank you. You're about to get demoted. But anyway, Jack and the Beanstalk, I think would be a fun one if you put it into a more futuristic setting. You know, where you kind of like, we're already kind of seeing that right now. Where we're like, why do you go out and hunt for meat? You know, you can just get it at like the grocery store. You know, so like if you put it in a futuristic setting, I think there's a lot of fun you could have with that. As Jack is the protagonist, going up some, you know, earthy beanstalk and finds out that even when he gets up into the clouds and he gets into that giant realm, that it's just as advanced as what's below, maybe a little bit more advanced. So now he's not stealing like magic shit. He's like trying to steal like advanced technology. So those are things that come to mind when I think about some of these fairy tales. Little Red Riding Hood. You could have some fun with that. You could take it outside of the supernatural and make it. Shit, I forgot what I was going to say. But there's a lot of things you can do with that and have fun. Really, with any of those stories, I mean, if you carry the themes and the rules, you know, of why that world is the way that world is and why they all fell in those kind of traps. You can do that with any story. You can do it with any setting. You can go further back. You can go further forward. Man, there's a lot of stuff, man. And I'm right now in my Hemingway phase where I drink before I create because I'm not worrying about anything. You know, I'm like super relaxed. I don't recommend that for everybody, but it worked for me.
I mean, you know, not everyone needs their liver. So, and Chloe's cat didn't carry it, so you should take a drink, everybody.
It regrows.
So I actually would probably incorporate something of the Russian fairy tale, The Brother and the Sister, which often gets confused with Hansel and Gretel because that was a different story. But in this one, the long and the short of it is, mother dies, dad remarries, new stepmother is an evil witch because all stepmothers are evil witches in these stories for some reason.
Whoa, hurtful.
I hate that.
Spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, I know, but so that is a standard trope for whatever reason. And so the kids run away, and the mother, the stepmother, because she's a witch, enchants the streams so they can't drink. And the first one, the sister listens to the stream. It's like, oh, you're going to turn into a tiger or wolf or something. And then the second thing, it's another tiger or wolf. It's different each time, but basically it's a creature that would potentially eat her. So she tells her brother no. The third stream, she tells him, if you drink this, you're going to turn into a deer. Which, I mean, I guess in the woods, I would rather be the predator than the prey. But he doesn't listen in time, and he ends up drinking it and turning it into a deer. So she loves him so much because, you know, family, the whole gist of the story is family is everything. She ends up using her golden necklace from her own mother, creating a leash and basically leading him around to protect him from the wolves and tigers and such. And they live out their lives as hermits in the woods. It's kind of a grim ending, but most Russian folklore kind of is. I mean, they had a harsh reality. What's that?
It's Russia. Everything's dark and gray and bad.
Yeah, I mean,
horrible.
No, but I drank vodka, so that almost makes me an honorary Russian, I guess.
Oh, you're practically a native.
I mean,
Anastasia. It took me a second. I'm like, I know there's a princess story over there because it's got Rasputin in it. And I'm
That's
like,
Anastasia.
It's Anastasia.
So that's a more of a modern attempt at a fairy tale about, you know, it's more of a conspiracy theory to tale than I think probably a fairy tale. But where is the line between when it becomes a fairy tale with modern versus old? Actually, that's a good question that maybe we'll do a whole episode on with people that study this professionally. Because that would be an interesting discussion. We just got to find an academic who cannot be boring. Yeah, that's going to be the hard part. But anyway, so the end of the story is because family.
That's always the hard part, JR, when you're writing, you know, fiction.
Yeah, but when we did.
Boring.
Yeah, but when we basically she lives out her life taking care of her brother because he was protecting her by helping her, you know, escape to protect her, right? So then turnabout is she spends the rest of her life taking care of him. And I like the fairy tales that push the importance of family because it's almost counterculture to modern zeitgeist where families doesn't matter. They don't agree with my politics. Cancel them. They're not related to me anymore. I don't like that
where they always tell the mom is the inciting incident.
Yeah, I don't like
tired of that. The poor parents.
I don't like what their favorite sports ball team. I mean, there's like family is seen as so disposable today, and that makes me sad. Family's in the end what you should be able to count on no matter what. And so anything that sort of pushes that as the underlying theme or moral story, I think is good.
No, I agree with you. I think we need more of that. I think a dynamic and inclusive family unit is probably the strength to everybody within that. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I get it. I don't know why. Has anybody done any deep dives on why they always kill the mother?
Oh, it's to create a trauma drive. I guess the term to use.
I saw a set of
Bambi.
memes that explained that none of the Disney movies would happen if her mom was alive. I like that explanation a lot.
And there's truth to that.
Hold on. There's actually talk. They were going to do a live action retelling of Bambi, and Disney's all about changing everything and inverting all the tropes and inserting modern politics for ancient messages where it didn't apply. But one of the ones they were talking about was for Bambi's mother not to die. But then the whole story doesn't exist. So how they do that, I don't know. I just don't see it working.
Yeah, that'd be hard.
So what they're saying is that in order to face, they have to face loss of a loved one to destroy their perfect idea of life, to give them the strength to, I just lost my train of thought. It just crashed over there somewhere.
To overcome the obstacles that are coming through the plot that they're about to face. Absolutely. There's a reason that all the heroes are orphans, man.
I agree with that. I do not agree with that at all. Like, I lost my mom, and my mom was my driving force. My mom was my inspiration to do the things that I have done. And I think it's a freaking cop-out that every superhero, because that's my forte, is driven by some sort of parental loss or becoming an orphan. I think that's bullshit. I think it's total bullshit. I think keeping those characters in there to give them their left and right limits, that guiding force, is probably more important than creating that trauma as a child that turns you into in some cases they're just cold and heartless and have no belief in the world, but yet they continue to do these superhero things. I think it's stupid.
Well, that's also one of the other things is you remove that
other
parental guidance. You remove that parental guidance, and a lot of these stories won't happen.
Well, and
all the stupid can't happen.
Look at Bambi. Loses his mom. Seconds later, dad shows up.
Yeah.
To continue the guidance. But you know what? What if, I know it's not really particular in nature, where the dad usually just goes, but, you can create that morality tale where both mom and dad are there to create the perfect guidance for that.
Well, that's what I mean. They wouldn't get in the crap that they get in if they had the guidance. That's why they make them orphans.
Right.
Yeah, would Batman have become Batman if his parents never died?
No, he'd be a trust fund baby and probably an asshole. I get it.
There's actually a one notable
Bruce Wayne. Actually, Bruce Wayne.
There's
Bruce Wayne. Batman.
Angela. That's
true.
Angela Carter wrote the book The Bloody Chamber about an impoverished piano student. It's written in 1979. Impoverished piano student married to a marquis much older than herself to banish the specter of poverty. But in this one, it's a variant on the Bluebeard, the pirate story. But in this one, the mother is described as almost unbeatable. Like, she's the unseekable Molly Brown. So she's a woman who's prepared for violence instead of hiding from it. I'm pulling up the brief bio of it. Recalls how her mother kept an antique service revolver and once shot a man-eating tiger with her own hands to protect her family. Like, that's the kind of thing that I would like to see more of, the inspirational, like family is inspiration instead of just plot device.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a lot of what Disney does is what I like to call maybe it'll further the plot.
Well, this isn't even a Disney thing. This exists before Disney was doing it. Like, Disney jumped on the trend.
JR, I get it. I'm just doing a callback to what we were talking about before this, where just maybe it furthers the freaking plot. But I would like to see the other plot where somebody's inspiring the youth as opposed to dying and pushing that child to another parental figure, because that's what happens. Batman had Alfred, you know?
Yeah. So one of the things I also like, you see it a lot in superheroes, but also in fairy tales, because I would almost say probably superheroes are almost modern day fairy tales. I could see that argument being made. But where, you know, you see all this destruction that happens when they go fight the big bad, but what happens afterwards? Like, you don't ever see the guy that has to come and like rebuild this town that's just been demolished. It's like that scene in the opening scene in Team America. If you guys watch that movie, it's a product in time. Awesome movie. Highly recommend it.
Movie. It's so.
They're going through Paris to fight these like 4 bad guys, terrorists, and they destroy all of Paris and knock over the Eiffel Tower. And he's like, yes, but we protected them from the terrorists. Like, that's kind of like a fairy tale in a nutshell, but you don't ever see the aftermath. I'm like, okay, like for instance, in the slasher films, sort of along those lines, like what happens when the cops show up and want to like police that scene? The victim that survived is going to rot in jail because he's covered in more shit, you know? Like, you never see the aftermath of the fairy tale.
Everybody else's blood.
Okay, I have a question. Because this comes into play in me and Nick's life a lot. So here's my question. What are all your guys' thoughts on the protagonists in fairy tales having abilities to speak to and or control animals?
I like that power.
Anybody?
Does that make it not a fairy tale, or?
In quite a few of them, like you can go pretty far back where, you know, the animals are attracted to said, you know, person.
Mm-hmm. It's a purity marker. It's like Save the Cat, but it's there to say that this is a good person because even nature likes this person. It's just an easy mechanic to go turn a person into something that is noble and unquestionably good because the birds will sing with her.
Well, look at Jack from the movie Legend.
Yeah.
Has everybody here seen the movie Legend with Tom Cruise?
Mm-mm.
No.
Yeah, Jack.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So going back to what Justin was talking about, everybody's named Jack. So connect that. You know, he was the pure forest human spirit dude, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then he got called on to be a warrior, so he had to do things that were outside of his nature.
Yep.
Well, and Lily was pure enough to summon a unicorn. And the unicorn tales very often go back to that purity, you know, it's the virgin, the this, that, and the other.
The innocence.
It's the innocence and all of that kind of thing that goes with it. And and that innocence, just thinking, if you've seen The Last Unicorn, Molly Grew is not outwardly an innocent person, but yet she sees the unicorn. And it tells you that there's a marker there that tells you everything that you need to know about her. And she says it would be the last unicorn in the world that would be called to Molly Grew. Because she has that innocence in her heart, even though she's working with a bunch of vagabonds and all of this, that, and the other, and is not a terribly pure person according to the rules of society. She's the person who can still see the unicorn.
And that movie
it is that Chloe's entirely right.
That movie is my first memory of childhood trauma.
So for Zach Kinney, who says, greetings, infidels. Yes, we are proudly heretical infidels, and greetings to you too, sir. And Steve wants us to know, because we mentioned memes, that a meme is not truly born until it's been stolen. You're here.
That's true.
JR, the king of stealing memes.
I do. But I like them before I steal them. I'll hit the thumbs up or the heart or the laughing because I'm civil.
Not always, sucker.
Well, it doesn't count from you because you're like family. So it's like su meme s me meme, or however I would try to turn that. I don't know. We're gonna move on.
So to bring us back to what we were just talking about with the animals, here's the funness. So JR always likes to joke that I'm the evil one. I'm Madam Stabby Stab. I'm so evil. The first time Nick ever got to see me around animals that were not his dogs, he took me to the San Diego Zoo for the first time. We're going to the zoo. And as we were walking through, he noticed that the animals kind of were drawn to me. At first, it was just a little thing here and a little thing there, until the elephants followed me through 3 pins around the entire elephant sanctuary. And then we got over to the lions, and the lioness was coming down to go in to eat. She was being called to eat, and she stopped and looked at me and and then continued. And then the male lion, he woke up from his nap, looked down at me, kind of tilted his head, and then flopped back down to go to sleep. We get over to the monkeys, and none of these monkeys will come down from the trees. All these kids are screaming and yelling, and none of these monkeys will come down. And their parents are like, come on, let's let her look at the monkeys. So I stepped up, and all of them just gravitated down.
Yeah, they know
And he's
you
like-
had snacks.
I had no
Well,
snacks.
he was a snack.
We didn't
Like,
stop
"You got
the snacks
gummy
yet.
We're gone.
So he's like, it's a fluke. A couple weeks later, he takes me to SeaWorld, and once again, all the whales keep coming over, the dolphins keep coming over, and he's just like, I married a freaking Disney princess. And it's everywhere we go. People are like, oh, my dogs don't like people, and immediately they're like right there with me. His father actually has a pet deer, and the first thing everybody told me was, don't look her in the eye. She's skittish. And I was like, okay. So I walk in the house, and I'm like looking at the ceiling. Next thing I know, I have a deer head in my hand, and Kiki's just like, hi, how you doing? Want to play fetch? I'm like, you're a deer. You play fetch? She
Couldn't
brought me
play
a tennis
fetch because
ball.
the tennis ball won't fit in her mouth.
But it was like, it's like, does that qualify me to be a freaking princess?
Yes.
Sure.
I don't know. I own no lands. I have no nobility.
No patents. No, I think you can actually contrast it too. It's not consistent, it's not universal, but villains are the ones who control animals.
Uh-oh, now you're doing-
It's that same
Yeah.
token that says that if you communicate and you can commune with nature and animals, you are good and noble. And if you control animals by force of will, you are evil. And there are some really notable exceptions out there that are really interesting to me that they get away with it and nobody really seems to notice or mind. But there's a consistency enough to it to make that a real thing.
I know it's fun to write those characters. I have one of those. She is kind of an agent of chaos and just talks with animals.
Nice.
And things happen.
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually it's because
I have actual talking animals in mind.
Which also works. You know, that's what do the animals choose? You know, your intelligence is there. You know, what
At a
is
certain point in time, when does anthropomorphizing the critters turn them sentient and thus they're not animals anymore? They're just different species.
If it's a
What
cat,
makes you think that animals aren't sentient?
Well, we don't know because they don't communicate with us on account of they didn't learn the Queen's English.
no, they're
they-
solving crimes now.
Yep.
Yeah, look at Pikachu.
They are.
He's got a whole movie. Pikachu Detective.
That's true.
Oh my! Now there's
And
I
they
want to argue with the
communicate.
Pikachu logic.
Now I need a Pikachu.
No,
Oh.
because they shock people, and that's bad.
Hey, free
Well,
electricity.
what about Alvin and the Chipmunks?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
that's
don't-
just
like-
evil. That's sheer unadulterated
do
evil.
they solve crime too?
We won't have to.
While singing.
Maybe.
They
If I have a
can
Pikachu,
That would be a
we don't
good
have to
movie,
pay
though, wouldn't it?
SDG.
What?
That'd be fun.
If I have a Pikachu, I no longer have to pay SDG&E because he'll just charge everything in the house for us.
What? Yeah, but he doesn't produce gas. The other part of the NE.
That's what the kid is for.
Domino, the Boston Terrier, definitely produces gas.
All right, and on that happy note, have you guys read any good fairy tale retellings that we want to pimp before we bring this puppy home?
We haven't touched on movies, and I mean like actual adaptations of the Brothers Grimm movies, like
there was
the
the-
Brothers Grimm.
There was the Grimm series on, was it
Mhm.
Fox?
NBC.
NBC?
Yeah,
Um,
it was
that was
more
actually
about
pretty
monster
good.
hunters.
Yeah, but the main character was a Grimm. the
It's true.
detective, and he was fighting the evil fairy tales, except for not all of the monsters were actually monsters. It was a cool sort
It
of
was an
look.
interesting concept. About the same time, I like the one ABC did, Once Upon a Time, that was basically a storybook weaving together. Like, talk about Rumpelstiltskin. That's probably one of the best portrayals of Rumpelstiltskin in like modern media.
Oh my god, he was so much
evil
fun.
queen.
Who became a good guy in the
It was actually the hero, and Snow White kind of did Jack.
She cut her hair short.
She was kind of lame.
Yeah,
but I like the movie
Regina
Brothers
Fillon.
Grimm. I like the movies Brother Grimm with Heath Ledger and Matt Damon. And I thought it was so much fun because they touched on the Little Red Riding Hood, they touched on Rapunzel, they touched on this, they touched on that. And it was just so much fun. It didn't get enough credit for what it was.
No, it didn't.
I absolutely
shitless, which was awesome. They're like, "Oh my god, this shit's crazy!" And like, any rational person was like, "Yeah, we should probably get out of here." They're like, "No, you should write that down." You know, every novelist here right now, we're all so freaking weird. We would do that. Like, "Oh, this scary stuff."
Oh yeah, totally.
I'm gonna write that down.
I'd run to a safe distance first, but then yes, I'd write it down.
I run.
No, you gotta be in there to get the real experience of it.
Yeah, I want to get possessed. You know, I want to eat the gingerbread from the house. Oh, can you imagine how good that would taste? Oh my god.
Oh, it'd be awful.
It's weathered.
And
Structural
rotten, probably.
gingerbread tastes terrible.
No.
What about the bugs that are probably in it?
No,
I don't care, man. I ate bugs in survival school. You mixed that
And
with
7-minute icing. Oh,
It's got mold. It's
Protein
hallucinogenic. That's why people like it.
there you go.
There you go.
Oh yeah.
That's my Netflix series right there. Nick's gonna eat fables. You know, fable houses. Like, how's it taste? I'm getting some extra protein with the crickets, but the gingerbread is freaking fire.
I mean, I once. Well, never mind. This is family friendly show. No, probably not. I actually paid a guy when I was in Iraq. One of the other guys. He's from Kentucky, so we were creative and called him Kentuck. Well, we paid him to eat a dung beetle out of the source.
Oh, wow.
He did it.
Hey man,
for
$20
for $20. Yeah, well, he was smart, so he didn't do it till enough people were willing to put $20 in. So he got $20 from me and $20 from him, and so he made a killing.
Yeah,
I mean, when I saw what he cleared afterwards, I'm like, well, shit, I might have eaten the bug for that amount. I didn't think about it. I was just thinking $20. We actually had the SF officer that was running the range, because this is right before we went in country. So it was the Camp Virginia in Kuwait where we did the range calls before we crossed the burn. This happened to be an African American SF officer, and he was there when we Green Beret Special Forces. He was there when we were doing it. And he thought for sure it was there's no way this kid was going to eat this dung beetle, and he turned paler than I am, and then green when he watched this guy. And I don't even he went to snake eater school, but eating the bug out of the fresh stuff was a bridge too far for that man, and he lost his lunch. Worth the price of entry. And of course, now Kentuck has mutant powers, and
he's got the power of the dung beetle.
If we circle back to movies, I mean, there's so many of them that they weren't given enough of a chance because they didn't follow the exact storyline of, the Disney version or this or that or the other. Like, you have Mirror Mirror, you have Into the Woods, you have Snow White and the Huntsman. Those were all such fun movies, but they didn't get the love that they deserved because they didn't stick within the Disney-fied version of what it should be. And I think one of my favorites, literally of all time, is actually Ever After.
Oh, I love Ever After.
What's that one?
It's a Cinderella story, but
Drew Barrymore, Cinderella.
Oh, I think I watched that.
With Da Vinci as her fairy godfather. Artistic godfather.
It definitely gives you a different vibe because you're watching her, get lashings. You're watching her get those cleaned out. Like, it gets pretty dark to the point you're sitting there like, oh, wow, this is a side of Cinderella I've never even taken into consideration. And the first time I saw that, I was like, why do I like this? And it's always stuck with me was, what was her name in that movie? Danielle de Boisbarac.
Danielle.
And you see Da Vinci walking around in his boat shoes,
Which was
which
funny.
is awesome.
But that was fun because they had time where she and the prince got to know each other. And this appeals to our modern sensibilities that say, if you're going to fall in love with somebody and want to live with them and have your happily ever after, it's nice if you know more than, their name and,
Their name.
because the Disney
You
is,
know that.
he looks up, he sees her across the room, and he knows that she's the one. And the king and the Grand Duke are actually a lot more interesting than the prince is. He is Prince Boring. And they fall in love, and I don't know why, because he is just boring as hell. And yet with something like Ever After, you have, and you see this a lot in books that do Cinderella, where they make a connection before the ball so that they can say, all of this happened first. They did it in The Slipper and the Rose, and they did it in, there's a Cinderella ballet, which had the same kind of thing where she met him far before, and there was a relationship developed before they see each other at the ball. And I think that's a modernist twist on it that says we want them to have that connection. And then the ball is a climactic point, but that's not where they fall in love. It's where their love is tested. It's where all these other things happen. But the falling in love story has been happening all the way along.
But
I like those better myself.
Statistically, arranged marriages do better in the long run, but nobody wants to hear about I met the bride on the wedding day. It just doesn't appeal to our sense of agency.
All I got from it was if you really want to get the prince, you got to throw an apple at his head. Knock some sense into him.
The
That was
fuck?
another great part of it too. Yeah, she hit him
That's
with an
how
apple.
their love. She hit him with an apple. That's how their love story started. She hucked an apple at him.
That's their meet cute. Their meet cute is
Just
when she
Oh my
hits him with
god!
an
You know what I
apple.
love about the books? There was no musical numbers.
This is true.
Ever After didn't have one.
I don't care, but it still had Drew Barrymore, and she's just the worst.
She has some movies where she did okay.
Yeah,
E.T.
Firestarter and E.T. That's it. That's the list. Carry on.
And Ever After.
Horrible
She did
actress.
great.
Horrible actress.
She did great in Ever
Oh
After.
my god! Like I'm a princess. No, shut up. E.T. Firestarter. That's it. That's the list. Carry on.
All right, so Nick definitely has some opinions here.
She got sold off to a freaking slaver too in that one, actually.
Yeah, she did get sold off to a slaver. It was a dark Cinderella, but it was really interesting.
Damn,
So anybody
that's
else have other film adaptations that they liked?
I'm gonna go back to Hansel and Gretel, man. That was pretty rad.
I enjoyed that movie.
It was so good. Like, it's not going to win an Oscar, and it shouldn't, because.
I mean, have you seen what wins Oscars these days? Come on, the bar's
We
kind of low.
actually
So
have
a good thing, because it means it's a good movie.
we actually have a Hansel and Gretel in our watch list for when Nick gets home. Shudder released it, and we have
It
yet
better
to
not
watch
suck.
it. But it's sitting in our Shudder list, and it's actually called Gretel and Hansel.
Oh yeah.
And
Nice.
it's sitting in our list for when he comes home, and I'm like,
We switched the orders of the names, therefore it's different. Nah, whatever.
Chloe.
well, I mean, if it's on Shudder, it's got to be pretty dark.
I don't know. We've watched some pretty crappy shit on Shudder. It's not all 10s. It's a lot
Yes,
of
but
3s rolling around in there.
that's okay. So Chloe, do you have any favorite film adaptations of fairy tales?
I think that the Cinderella remakes have been really charming, but what really comes to mind for me that I absolutely adore and at the same time kind of loathe are the TV series that pretend like everything can be true at once and go traipse through all of them one time. And you've got the Greek gods wandering around, and you've got the Indian gods wandering around, and Hansel and Gretel go by, and I have a strong love-hate relationship with this treatment, and it's playful and it's fun, and I enjoy it, but it requires a strong suspension of reality.
All right. What about you, James? Do you have a favorite?
I won't say it's a favorite, but one I really enjoyed several years back. It's a different take on the animation side of things, but it was Hoodwinked.
That one was so much fun.
It's so fun.
Hoodwinked was
Kind of
really
detective
good.
mystery noir, like what happened to Granny, and you have it's a great cast. You have like Anne Hathaway as Red Riding Hood, Patrick Warburton is the Wolf, and I can't remember who.
Couscous. Poison for Couscous.
It was Belushi was the woodsman. But anyway, great voice acting, great take on the story. It's very much like a crime scene drama.
Mm-hmm.
They did
very,
a sequel to
very
it, yeah?
interesting.
There was a sequel?
Yeah, it sucked.
Yes.
It
Number
sucked?
2
It
was
wasn't
not so
good?
The
great.
sequel sucked. The original was great.
Oh, man, what a cast. Anne Hathaway, Glenn Close, Patrick Warburton, Jim Belushi, Anthony Anderson. Oh, Lord. Andy Dick? Oh, I'm in.
Yep.
That's right, Andy Dick. That's right.
Oh yeah,
What about
If
you,
you haven't
Terry?
seen this, you should. This one's a gift.
it's hilarious.
That was a good one.
What about you, Terry?
I'm going to let my Disney show here. I really liked the live action adaptation they did a few years back of Beauty and the Beast with Emma Watson.
With
That
Emma
was
Watson.
beautiful.
I don't think I've
That
seen the
was-
Emma Watson one.
That was
That
beautiful.
was actually really well
gorgeous.
done.
Yes.
Mhm.
And it has been the standard by which I judge all of the remakes that Disney has done. And only Little Mermaid has come close to meeting it. They explained a lot of things that people had issues with. And I liked it.
I got
So-
one problem with Beauty and the Beast as a tale because she has some explaining to do about her preferences. And I thought about this because I mentioned, I might have written some Yeti romance stories once upon a time in a past life. She was ready to get with that before he was
trilogy counting.
Who's counting? She was ready to get with him
Beyond that,
before he
man.
became human because she wanted the library. I mean, I get it. It was a nice library. But I'm just saying, she didn't seem to mind jumping the species line, and that was a little bit weird.
But you also have dishes that wash themselves. Come on.
Yeah.
Down for that. Down for that.
Automatic food? Like,
Yeah.
you never have to cook anything? It just
No.
shows up.
You don't
Yeah,
cook,
but then
you don't clean.
Your staff, you're like eating off your staff, and so everything's like an HR nightmare. Can you imagine?
There's so many sexual connotations to that. Like,
So
Make it stop! Make it stop!
here's
What have I done?
Here's a fun fact.
Wellington off of Mrs. Sansbury that used to work down the hall.
So we should probably stop, Nick, and let Stabby save us.
Here's a fun fact about the live adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. A lot of people don't know this, but Emma Watson absolutely refused to wear a corset. She said, I'm not going to be this iconic character that children watch and let them think that am not comfortable enough in my own body. I will not wear a corset.
She's 90 pounds, soaking wet.
It's not the
What's she
point.
need a corset for?
Also true.
Still not the point.
Girl, get off your high horse.
Oh, and
All
they
right.
also just fired Rachel Ziegler and brought in what's her name? The chick
Snow
that played
White.
Wednesday.
Jenna
They brought
Ortega.
Wednesday in as the new Snow White. They're refilming like
Oh.
90% of the movie.
They're losing a lot of money on it.
Dwarves.
Are they going to make the dwarves actually little people?
So they're going back to the
new
original story. They're not doing this, I am the queen and I'm going to build myself into the person to become the queen that Rachel Ziegler wanted. They're refilming almost the whole movie to go back to the original story of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
So basically, they scrapped the first project and they're doing round two, where it's basically the different movie.
Well,
Okay.
I think they're after losing almost $1 billion, they're learning, quit putting our BS in there and let's make it as true to the source material as possible. It's the same argument we've had in comic book films.
Mm-hmm.
When they start making changes to that, it's like, dude, no, that's not how it is. And I know you're trying to get like people that are not into that particular genre, but everybody's into fairy tales. So you got to keep it close to the source material. Otherwise, you're going to piss a lot of people off, like generations worth of people off. So if you
Jenna
wanna make money,
Ortega, that's her name.
Jenna Ortega, yeah. Who's just awesome. She's a fabulous actress. Loved her on Wednesday.
Are the Girl Scout cookies made with real Girl Scouts?
Well, she was also in, and I forgot that she was in this movie until I actually rewatched it last night. She was in the Babysitter, Scream Queen or Killer Queen. She was in the horror movie.
Ortega was in that?
Yes, she was. So you remember in the first one, his babysitter was trying to kill him, and he kind of fell for the girl down the street after he crashed her dad's car. So in the second one, that girl down the street winds up just as bad as the babysitter. Jenna Ortega is the girl that shows up and was the babysitter's first, babysitting job before she wound up in that deal with the devil. But yes, it is Jenna Ortega, and she's a total badass in that movie. And I was like, she went straight up 80s video game on that game or on that movie, and I was like, oh my god, I love it so much. So I'm down for her being Snow White.
Absolutely. So we've been going about, we're about an hour and a half in. There's so much we could talk about with Fairy Tale. So if you've got ideas for round 2, because we've talked about this in other IP and genre discussions, that the first one's more scattershot. Like we're just taking a shotgun to the target, and what hits, and we're all kind of all over the place. But we'd like to get more precise with round 2. Once we sort of identified the target. So if you've got any common tropes you want us to dive deeper into, if you've got any specific IPs with regard to fairy tales, we're down to do that. So reach out to us, comment in the comment section, comment on the YouTubes, the Facebooks, the Twitters, or X, I guess, whatever, the things. Reach out to us. Absolutely. And we can start scheduling things, because we're having some fun getting this stuff down, and we're kind of just letting the muse take us. And you seem to be enjoying the ride, because our audience is doubling, which is a good thing. We'd like to see that double a few more times, because monetization is good, but in the meantime, we're having fun.
Let me put something in here for our audience at home, which we love and revere, and this is why we do what we do. Give us that laser focus, everybody. Put it in the comment section. Send some hate mail to Stabby, because we're kind of like not getting any, and I don't like that. Give us the laser focus so we can get more specific into a lot of these genres that we've talked about over the last couple of episodes.
You know what would really help them do that, Nick?
What's that? Money?
If they bought some coffee brand coffee with the code podcast grunts, I bet the caffeine would go straight to their brain, and they'd be able to think. We're shameless salespeople.
Caffeination keeps you awake. Being awake keeps you focused.
There you go.
Speaking of coffee brand coffee, my love, I know that you were in Florida and tomorrow is payday. Can you send me another bag of coffee brand coffee? Because I'm out of blueberry.
No.
Well, you could use the discount code and save 10%.
But you can use that discount code and save 10%, and I'll save you some money for that.
Okay.
There you go. All right. So with that being said, we've got our lovely panel of guests who we're going to have back, because they're so much fun. But we're going to let them tell us what they're writing now, and then how they can be reached on the wild, wild interwebs. And we're going to go in reverse order this time. So Terry K. Job.
Ooh. Right now, I'm working on an anthology piece for Three Ravens Publishing, due in November. So I got to get my butt in my writing chair. Woohoo!
All righty. And how can they find you on the wild, wild interwebs?
Oh yeah, duh. Most commonly on Facebook, Terry K. Job. I post a lot of pictures of cats.
Did you know that the Brothers Grimm, they actually wrote a story called The Seven Ravens?
Ooh.
Nice.
I was just holding that in my pocket for when she said Three Ravens. I don't know what the story is.
Madam Stabby, now the Madam of Suspense. Ooh.
Look up the story. Let me know how it is.
Roger.
Good to know. Next, we got Miss Chloe Gardner with no D.
Yep,
Yeah,
I finally gave myself permission to write about horses. I knew from the time I was 12 if I did it, I was going to write like a 12-year-old, and I finally grew up and was like, no, I get to do this. So I am writing a full 4-book series on magic horses, and it's been so much fun. And the covers are fantastic. Even just to come see the covers, go look because they're gorgeous.
Shades of the Brown.
What's that?
Shades of the
What
Brown.
age?
Never surrender. Go, Chloe.
Okay.
Hold on, what did Jenna say?
Yeah.
I just wanted to know what age range because I have a daughter who is a horse fanatic, and I'm wanting to know if are they appropriate for the younger crowd?
Actually, it's adult fantasy, but this is one of the series that has absolutely no strong language, absolutely no nudity, no sex, and the violence is very moderate. It's
smut.
No smut at all. And the female lead is 16 and doing a lot of coming of age stuff.
So
It's
young adults,
family drama, pastoral
Great.
drama. So this is actually one that's a good place for starting for teen and young teen readers. Yeah,
I'm excited because we all have teenage children. Some of them are girls.
Yeah, drop us a title, Chloe.
the series is called Hill Chargers. The first book is out now, called the Clan of Three Staffs, and the next book is on pre-order coming next week. The 4th book ought to be out by December, and I'm having a blast with this one. If you want to catch up with me, you can find both my newsletter, which will just let you know when I've got stuff out, or my Facebook group, which is where I act like a human being, which sometimes means being quite absurd and abnormal. And you can find both of those linked off of my Facebook page.
I don't appreciate you keeping secrets from us, Chloe, you saucy minx.
Outstanding. So we don't know who we're going to get to answer this one, but it's either going to be Jenna Ray or Jana Brown. But one of them is going to tell us what they're writing and where we can find them on the interweb.
Well, since Jana just released a very, very boring book on self-editing, actually, it's not boring at all, but it's for writers. Jenna Ray is working on the 3rd in the War of the Lich trilogy. Like I say, that's supposed to come out in January, so I need to write faster. That's one that my mother has said, you will finish this now. And because I listen to my fairy tales and I know what happens when you disobey your parents, I am working on that one because I want to get it finished for her. So that's the next thing that is coming out hopefully very, very soon.
Is the consequence spankings, or were your parents normal?
Yeah, see, the consequences is that my mother will be disappointed in me, and disappointment is really, really bad.
Is it Catholic guilt levels of disappointment? Because, I've got a grandma. I'm just saying.
It's pretty close. Yeah, it's right up there.
I mean, we're not talking like Spanish grandma hitting you with your chonkalas, but I mean, German Catholic grandmas were pretty up there. I'm just saying.
No,
yeah,
it's Italian grandma with the switch.
Ooh.
Yeah, no switches. She'll just tell me, I'm so disappointed. I desperately want to read it, and I love my mama, so she's gonna she gets the next book, and then everything else can line up after that. So, and you can find me on the web at www.opalkingdompress.com. That's where all of me, myself, and I all live at. Or Jana S. Brown writes anywhere on the internet. If it's on the Facebooks, the Twitters, the whatever, it's all me. Most of the Jenna Rays also all me, and all of the Jade Ashers are all me. So you can find me. It's not hard.
All right.
Literary Jenna Ray.
She is also in the Three Ravens Discord group if you want to hang out and chat all things nerdy. And we are working on with Stabby Jr. We're working on our own Discord for the podcast. She just had, school things and life and whatever that's about. But she is working on it.
No, today's Friday the 13th in Las Vegas. She's getting her new Friday the 13th tattoo, which is the scream knife with Ghostface face inside the blade. This girl is cooler than me.
All right. So, James, don't disappoint your mother, but tell us what you're writing and then how we can find you.
All right. So I'm working on the next Felix Chance novel. It's going to be called Off Chance. We'll start serializing hopefully by the end of the month. I do write all of my novels as serials first and then gather them up. You can find me on the interwebs at halfacrepond.com or jepitman.com. I did get my name. And also on Facebook, J. Pittman Writes, and then j.e.pittman, pretty much on all the others.
All right, outstanding. And this is the part of the interview, dear listener, dear viewer, we'll remind you to please be kind and speak your mind on the reviewing platforms. Your reviews help the right readers find the right book. So do your part, people. Speaking of reviews, if you're listening to this purely in audio form goodness, you can hop on over to wherever you download your audio or from your podcast platform. You could rate our podcast. That would greatly help us for visibility's sake. Apparently it's a thing, and I haven't done it either. So I'm going to go tell myself how horrible I am as I go and review everything I listen to on the podcast platforms, which in my case is Spotify. Who knew it was a thing? I mean, I review books at least, right? But with that being said, you can find us on the interweb at Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things, the bit shoots, the rumbles, the Twitters, our Facebook group, our Facebook page. You can find Madam Stabby Stab, where she will tell you how to, I don't know what she tells you because nobody writes her. You should write her. She feels lonely.
You got to write to Stabby, man.
Right. You can email us for serious business inquiries at blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Now that we have the fun email address, that's the boring one for scheduling and such. But if you are a writer and want to talk about books or you've got topics, you can reach out, because some of our topics started because the listener said, hey, I want to hear that. And one of them I actually convinced the person to come on the show. So we're going to have a horror fanatic come on to talk about Monster Mash here in the near future. With that being said, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades Podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. And before I end this live, if you enjoyed the live format, we could maybe make that a quarterly thing. I mean, we've got lives people, and editing after mistakes is kind of helpful with shy creative types, but we don't mind doing some of these on special occasions. If you enjoy it, let us know, and we can always set it up, and we'll go from there. Thank you, Chloe, Terry, Jenna, James. Thank you all for coming.
That's a mouthful.
Jana, you gotta wait twice because there's two of you, at least two on the podcast.
Yeah.
All right, and with that being said, I'm gonna hit the end button and wonder how long it takes to end the stream.